We're continuing on this pillar, and I want to, again, we're dealing with pillar 2 this afternoon, and this pillar looks really at the symbiosis of theory and practice. A lot of the conversations we just heard also centered around the role of micro-credentials in industry and how do we integrate industry credentials in the broader credentialing and assessment process. I want to introduce then our next panel. This panel will look at the importance of integrating industry-recognized certification into education systems. For this panel, we're joined by Dr. Bryan Depoy, the Interim Provost at the University of St. Leo, the confirmed and inaugurated Provost of the, yes please, congratulations. Thank you, sir. Provost of St. Leo University, thank you. Please. We are joined by Dr. Henry Young of the New England Institute of Technology, Professor Gossett Oliver, who I'm very excited to hear in this panel. A fellow of C.Eng London, of the C.Eng London Institute, based in, but he himself based in Kingston, Jamaica, I understand. And finally, Patrick Chinedu, who we'll also invite to the panel, Director of the Council for Technical and Vocational Education and Training here in Guyana. I want to welcome you to this panel. I think that you're coming after a very riveting conversation. The panel should also be an hour, and we'll see how best that goes. But as you recall, guidance notes were shared. Each panelist is allowed 3 minutes of an opening presentation. We will move quickly after those opening comments to questions from the audience and perhaps another riveting conversation. We'll give our colleague from St. Leo University the first opportunity.
Happy to do so. Thank you. Before I offer a few brief remarks, I want to offer just a message of gratitude to our hosts. Thank you very much for putting on today, especially as we wrap up this afternoon. And thank you very much. We were here yesterday, had a wonderful tour of campus. We were able to visit town. And just thank you very much for your hospitality. It's really been a life-changing visit. So thank you very much for all you've done. Can you hear me okay? Just a few thoughts about today's conversation. I have a unique vantage point. Not only am I a provost, but I also have an 18-year-old daughter. And I look at higher education through the lens of what she's going through. And if you think about the conversation today, those discussions have been riveting. You know, the dialogue has been really enthralling and captivating. But let's do a little bit of a reset. Let's think about why higher education exists. Why does it exist? You would think it exists because of the gazillion meetings we all have to have in the world of higher education, the fundraising and the politicking we've got to do. But if we reduce it to one single component, I'm going to look at it from the vantage point of my 18-year-old. It's to produce capable citizens so they can thrive in an ever-evolving world, right? That's what it's about. We want our young people to thrive and succeed. So if we can agree on that, then the question becomes, what do we need to do as a community to help them succeed? And so if we start running it through that sieve, I want to share with you a few perspectives that I hear directly from my daughter, Natalie, my 18-year-old. Had a wonderful conversation with Jonathan and Evelina. Jonathan was a pre-med student who may no longer be here today. Hey, Jonathan, how are you? Jonathan was, as he was listening to all of us, he was actually studying about women's maternal health because he is a med student, right? I saw your notes, And I think Evelina was also talking to me about her experience as a petroleum engineering student. But here's something that they both acknowledge, is that they have to wait a long time to get involved in their discipline, to do what they want to do. 2, 3, 4, and 5 years. If you think about the contradiction, when is it that young people, like my daughter, are the most pliable? When can they learn the most? When are they learning about what they will be about, what they're interested in, what they are good at? It's not when they're old, like us or me. It's not when they're 14, but it's that period of 18 to 22. And then what does higher education do? We flood them with courses that might not be entirely relevant to them. We make them attend meetings, we lecture to them all the time, when that is the most pliable time. If we want to be feeding as much information and experiences to young people to create a thriving society, it's when they're 18 to 22, right? Isn't that a contradiction with what we do in higher education? And I'm part of it, I agree. So what is a potential solution to this? I can't remember the fellow's name, somebody over here was talking about the connection to industry. And one of the most important things that we can be doing, and one of the things I've not heard talked about yet today, is the role of the faculty, the role that faculty have in this academic ecosystem. So if you think about the primary responsibility of the faculty, it's to take what they know and impart that in the classroom. Where does the industry come into play here? So what I'm suggesting to all of you is that we think about our higher education model and turn it upside down. Well, the most important thing we can be doing is getting our students into the workforce or in the businesses, the organizations and disciplines, and doing their discipline right away, as facilitated by faculty on day one. Now, how cool is that, right? So you're not waiting until your 3rd or 4th year to have that experience with a mother or a pregnant woman, right? Instead of reading about it on an iPad, you're actually learning it in the environment. Or as a petroleum engineer, you're seeing mistakes that are made. You're working to solve those problems. And so that connection between higher education, day one, and not only the current needs of industry, but those needs that are emerging that we don't even know about yet, right? If we can be the bridge between the needs of society and then that expansive ability to learn in 18 to 22-year-olds, now we're talking about something cool and different, because there's no one else really talking about it in such a way. So I think the fact that we're having this conversation today at this time is highly relevant. And I think there's an opportunity for the University of Guyana and us in this room to change the world. And so let's not be shy about thinking that we have that ability. Building the connection between higher education and the industry. Now, that seems a little bit off topic based upon our accreditation, certifications, things like that. But it actually is very relevant. Because we've talked about micro-credentials, we've talked about the standards, those who enforce those standards, and those standards continue to evolve every day, right? They're always changing, being updated based upon new problems that need to be solved and new opportunities on the horizon. That is where these certifications come into play, because they are guided not by what we really want here in this room, but by what the industry is saying that they need to be successful, not only currently, but looking into the future. So that's why these industry certifications are absolutely viable, not necessarily in place of a traditional education we're looking at, but complementing them. And how do you get there? We don't theorize. We don't read a textbook that's 4 or 5 years old. We don't ask AI a question. What we do is we understand what the real world of work is telling us that we need to be successful, right? So if we begin to think about the ecosystem from a very student and employment-based perspective, that kind of changes what is important to us, right? And so that, I think, is an important role that we play in higher education, but also as it relates to industry certification. So thank you for your patience with those remarks.
Thank you.
Colleague Henry.
Good afternoon. I would like to echo my thanks for being invited to University of Guyana and partaking in this conclave. My only regret is that I could not bring every single faculty member from our university down to listen to the great conversation on some really relevant issues take place. So I thank you for the invitation. I would just, I'll be somewhat brief, but you know, my perspective has always been that higher education has to evolve alongside the industry and societies that we ultimately serve. And how that manifests, you know, occurs in many different ways, but relevant to what we're talking about today. It relates to accreditation of institutions, accreditation of programs. It relates to standards that we set within our programs. It relates to certifications that we offer and micro-credentials as well. And I think what you'll hear from my perspective today is how we have executed, I think, very well at the New England Institute of Technology up in New England, just a little south of Boston. How we have successfully implemented all of those things, accreditation, certifications, micro-credentials, how we've wrapped it into our curriculum in a meaningful way, and it's been wholly supported by industry. And creating that culture of quality and cooperation with industry has served us very well. And you know what we see in terms of enrollments is that, you know, our enrollments in what we like to call professional building trades and in engineering technology were pretty flat up until about 3 or 4 years ago. And a number of internal and external circumstances has occurred, and what we're seeing, in short, is an explosion in interest and enrollment in our professional building trade programs. And it is largely driven because we have a lot of competition in this space in New England. They come to us because I think they recognize the quality of the programs that we're offering, which are evidenced by all these accreditations and certifications and micro-credentials that we offer and the success that we've had with industry. Our employment and field rate is about 95%. So that's sort of the lower end of our program, so it's between 95 and 100%. These are in programs like plumbing, heating, electrical, building construction, welding engineering, mechanical engineering technology, electrical engineering technology. So it's been a very successful program, and I hear the machinations that you all are going through as you're implementing this. I hope to let you know what it's like on the other side as we go through today's discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Young. Professor Gossett.
Thank you, colleagues. I too want to take this opportunity of congratulating UG and in particular Professor Martin for putting on this conclave. It's well deserved, and this conversation is well overdue. Thanks again. The topic that we are supposed to be looking at is the importance of integrating industry recognized certification into education systems. And I'd like just to talk a little bit about my experience in Jamaica as it relates to the topic. As you're mostly aware, that TechVoc education is not new. Started off certainly in the UK in 1867 with the Sitting Guilds of London offering technical education, TechVoc education, relating to that of industrial certification. In Jamaica, there's only one trade, believe it or not, that is regulated by certification by government. and that's the electrical licensing. Yeah? So, in order to be an electrical licensed person that is certified and be passed by the government body for wiring of factories and homes and so on, is an electrical certified person. So the other trades like plumbing, mechanical engineering, carpentry, masonry are not regulated. In the territory, there are only few countries in the territory that have regulated trade license qualification. And that's not good for the end users for many reasons, for insurance, etc., etc. So dream with me for a while, I ask. Imagine you have a plumber, and how do you go about offering him his or her the job? Is it by experience? Is it by knowing someone who knows someone? Yeah? How do you integrate that industrial recognized qualification along with a standard certification, putting the two together? A very important thing. And in the Caribbean region, this is something, a low-hanging fruit that we ought to be looking at. I know of so many, we're building these skyscrapers with plumbing taking place. I know of one case that could go on forever. An old lady in a high scraper apartment, plumbing went bad. She called in a fellow who obviously didn't have not certified by industrial standard. There's no such thing. And so he let out all the water out of the Alverson system in order to fix the plumbing. Fixed it, only to find that it's leaking again. So she had to leak up. This is a lady, 65. Leak the water out again, try to fix. This went on 3 times. She had no recourse. No one to go to. There's no licensing authority. Yeah? That he or she can lose his license, their license. And so it is so important that we must start thinking about integrating in any modern society, any modern industrial society. It's absolutely vital. And so the university has a role to play here. Yeah? The university should be the leaders, yeah, of getting government into accepting. Now, I know it's a numbers game. It's a numbers game. And the politicians will tell you, yeah, that, and I'll share with you what a politician said in Jamaica. Engineering, anyone would call themselves an engineer up until recently. And the engineers in Jamaica decided to go to the government and said, well, look, we want to have us registered that only engineers can practice engineering in Jamaica and call themselves an engineer. And the politician said to him, or to us, because I was part of the contingency of it, he said, if you can get those persons who are superintendents, who have never been inside a school in all their lives, but they've been doing bridges all these years, and you can fast track them on the grandfather clause, yeah, and give them certification, then I will allow it. And that's how comes the Professional Engineering Board started in Jamaica. By law, it's now legal by law that you must be registered by PERB in order to have government contract and have a stamp to sign off with. And so I want to drill down on that and to say that ought to be the same thing for trades generally, in order to get us to be where we need as a developed and not a developing nation in the Caribbean. and we must do this speedily. And with the help of this university, I'm sure that we can get there. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chinedu. Let me join my team by sitting, and I want to, of course, thank the university for the invitation, and I like what my colleague here, how he channeled his presentation, but from my end, I will bring it to the perspective of training and certification. But before I go further, I want to take a minute to let you know what my council does. Because every now and then, hearing Facebook, people telling in AI, why nobody talking about it? I know as well, we ask ourselves, why nobody talking about CVQ and CTVET in Guyana? Because we recognize that what we do fits quite very well into what we're discussing today, industry recognized certification. Because that was CVQ, that was CTVET was established today by an act of parliament in 2004 that mandates us, among other things, to establish a national system of modularized CTVET competency-based training. One that is driven by industry, based by labor market information survey, not just I starting today and I developing a curriculum and syllabus or standard. There must be a need for it that is documented and justified. With that information, we have the practitioners, not I or somebody sitting in a classroom, developing a curriculum. We have in Ghana what we call lead group in almost every skill area. We will put them together for a week. Of course, they get their time off from wherever they are. They assist us in ensuring that that need has been established, that we can articulate that need in form of standards, which we then translate into a curriculum and learning and training materials. We do not stop here. We advise as well that the CVQ, CTVET must be industry-led in the sense that as we train, these industrial practitioners must be able or must come here to ensure that what we are doing, the facility that has been established, is in keeping with the industrial current trend in that specific area. To the end of the day, they are responsible to ensuring that the assessment, the certification, the training that a graduate has received meets the initial standard they will have set up. So at the end of the day, after the training, we send them to these institutions to ensure that they do what we call verification of assessment. Because I can sit at GTA and train somebody, which we used to do before, and at the end of the day, I send them to write exam, and probably I give them the certificate signed by the minister and the CEO. But today, I cannot do that. I have to bring that person who is current and knows what is needed in welding electrical to go in there and evaluate what that person has done, to know whether or not CTVET can issue that certificate to that person. Now, that is, in a nutshell, how what we do progress. That's what we do at CTVET. That has started since 2012. This year, we're projecting to issue about 5,000 CVQ certificates and statements. Of course, along with the CXC, that COSAR would have mandated to issue CVQ in secondary schools. Of course, working with the Council for TVET. We have been doing that for the past, I think, 4 or 5 years now. Now, the importance of integrating industry-recognized certification in the education system, for me, has been addressed. Can give you maybe in 2012, when COSAR had a meeting here, taking Pegasus, where there was a well-articulated presentation by the then historic in peace, somebody we call one of the best minds we have in TVET, Mr. Robert Gregory, and the then Registrar of CXC. They presented what we should be doing in 2012 in the Caribbean when it comes to certification, especially at the secondary school level. That was when I believe CARICON took the decision to ensure that in secondary schools we streamline skills training in our certification process. That is happening currently, and I believe that system, if we are to expand it, as we are doing it currently in Guyana, that is going to lend to what is currently happening and helping Guyana in our ever-changing, increasing labor market demand. We are told recently by a survey that we need in excess of about 140,000 new persons to be trained for the next 4 or 5 years. The question I've been asked, where are these industry training institutions? Are we able to deliver that 100,000 new skills or new jobs that are going to be created or formed? If we are able, those qualifications or those certificates, how does it meet the current need of industries and commerce and companies? I trust you, I tell you this afternoon that CTVET, as I would have told a group of 400 teachers in our secondary school system, that we are currently training to implement this CTVET program, that from what I've seen in my almost 20-odd years in skills training, that CTVET becomes one of the best ways of delivering skills training, if we do it good. Because at the end of the day, as my colleague mentioned, the essence of higher education is what you do out there and where you live. What do you do in the society? What contribution do you make to the industries? What do you do to the civic society that you live in? The question therefore is, if what we have been integrating into the system, if you can make sure that the persons that we graduate respond to the ever-evolving needs of our economy, then I believe that system should be embraced. However, we have the challenges, as I have mentioned this morning, earlier today, the need to ensure that constant collaboration and involvement with industries. We spoke earlier about the micro-credentialing. Of course, we didn't bring on board the whole issue of online training, online certification, and blended learning, which, of course, when you look at blended learning and online training, micro-credential, same as going to go hand in hand. Because at the end of the day, people are looking at how to get that certification, that skill faster today than now, not waiting for tomorrow. We have to respond to that. That's what industries are asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Chinedu. I want to thank you all for the opening remarks. I think we got a good framing there. We started with sort of a broad conceptual question from Mr. Depoy, and we got an insight into some very practical ways in which this has been done. And we also now understand a little bit more about the process, at least in the context of Guyana.